Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you the most dangerous evil doesn't come with a mask, a weapon, or a warning? It comes wearing a smile, speaking sweet words, and convincing you it loves you? What if I told you that the very person you trust the most could be quietly dismantling your mind, your heart, and your soul, until you no longer recognize yourself? Tonight, I'm going to reveal 3 terrifying signs that someone you thought you knew has crossed the line, not just into selfishness, not just into manipulation, but into something far darker. Stay with me, because once you learn to see these signs, you'll never look at certain people the same way again. You want to know what's terrifying? It's not the horror movies, it's not the jump scares or the monsters hiding under the bed. What's terrifying is the moment you finally realize that someone you trusted, someone you maybe even loved, has crossed the line into something darker. When a narcissist fully becomes evil, it's not about theatrics. It's about the slow, methodical erosion of your soul, piece by piece. And if you're not vigilant, you won't even see it happening until you're standing there, broken, wondering how you lost yourself in the process. The first sign is how they weaponize your vulnerability. Everyone has a soft spot, a place where they're raw, human, and real. Maybe it's your past trauma, your insecurities, your dreams. When you open up to someone in good faith, you expect at least some degree of care, of protection. But a narcissist who has turned the corner into true malice doesn't just fail to protect that vulnerability. They twist it. They use it like a dagger. Every fear you confessed, every insecurity you admitted in the safety of intimacy suddenly gets thrown back at you in moments of conflict, in moments where they want to break you down. They know exactly what words to use to silence you, to make you question your own worth, to push you into corners where you feel powerless. That's not carelessness. That's calculated cruelty. And you start to feel the chill of it because it's so intentional. At first you might excuse it, tell yourself they lashed out in the heat of the moment. But no, it's too precise. They know exactly what they're doing, and the more you let them, the bolder they become. That's the first terrifying sign. Your pain is no longer safe in their hands. It's their favorite weapon. The second sign is the erosion of reality. A narcissist who has fully embraced evil doesn't just lie. They create entire alternate realities and force you to live in them. They rewrite history, they distort facts, they look you in the eye and tell you the sky is red when you're staring at blue, and you start to doubt yourself because their confidence is so absolute. They'll tell you conversations never happened, that promises they made don't exist, that events you both witnessed were figments of your imagination. And it works. Slowly, you stop trusting your memory, your judgment, your instincts. That's not just manipulation, it's psychological warfare. They want to disarm you so completely that you're forced to rely on them for truth. And once they have that control, they own you. Because the moment you stop believing in yourself, you become dependent. And dependency is power. They strip away your anchors until the only ground you're standing on is the one they've fabricated. It's a prison with invisible walls, and by the time you realize you're trapped, your confidence has been hollowed out. The terrifying part of this sign isn't just the lying. It's the consistency of it, the relentlessness. They gaslight you with such dedication that you start to lose track of what's real. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that your entire sense of self has been built on their illusions. That's what evil looks like. Not dramatic violence, but the quiet dismantling of your mind. The third sign, and maybe the most chilling, is their lack of remorse. A narcissist who's still lingering on the human side of the spectrum may hurt you, but sometimes you'll catch flashes of guilt, of shame, of something resembling conscience. But once they've stepped fully into darkness, that vanishes. They don't just lack empathy, they find satisfaction in your suffering. They derive pleasure from watching you break because it validates their power. Pay attention to their eyes, their body language when you're hurting. Do they soften? Do they back off? Or do they lean in, feeding on it? Because evil doesn't always roar. It smiles. It enjoys the chaos it creates. And when someone can look at your pain and not only feel nothing but actually thrive on it, that's the moment you know they've crossed the line. That's when you're not dealing with someone who is simply selfish or flawed. You're dealing with someone dangerous. And here's the part most people don't want to accept. Once they've reached this point, you cannot fix them. You cannot love them hard enough, support them deeply enough, or sacrifice yourself enough to bring them back. Because evil doesn't want saving, it wants feeding. And the more you give, the more it consumes. It's like trying to pour water into a black hole. Everything vanishes, and nothing ever fills it. So what do? You stand guard over your own soul like your life depends on it, because it does. You stop rationalizing their behavior, stop minimizing the signs, stop hoping that tomorrow they'll wake up different. You trust the evidence in front of you, not the promises they dangle to keep you tethered, and you make the choice that feels impossible in the moment, but is the only way forward. You walk away. It will hurt. You'll question yourself because that's what they've trained you to do. You'll feel guilty because they've conditioned you to carry their shame as if it were your own. But strength isn't about how much pain you can endure. It's about knowing when to refuse it. And refusing to stay under the grip of someone who has embraced this level of destruction is the most courageous thing you can ever do. Because when you spot these 3 signs, the weaponization of your vulnerability, the distortion of reality, the absence of remorse, you're no longer dealing with someone who simply has issues. You're dealing with someone who has chosen darkness, and your only responsibility in that moment is to choose light. But here's the truth that nobody tells you when you're caught in the grip of someone like this. Choosing light doesn't feel like light at first. It feels like darkness, like loss, like ripping away a part of yourself you thought you couldn't live without. Because a narcissist who's fully turned into something darker has a way of convincing you that they are the center of your universe. They make themselves the sun in your sky, and even when they scorch you, even when you're burned down to ash, you still look up at them, blinded, believing you need them to survive. Walking away feels like cutting out your own heart. That's how powerful their conditioning is. But conditioning isn't destiny. You can unlearn what they drilled into you. You can relearn the sound of your own voice after years of being silenced. You can reclaim your own truth after months or years of being told you're delusional. You can stand in front of a mirror, see the scars they left behind, and know those scars are proof not of your weakness, but of your endurance. Because evil doesn't break strong people, it reveals their strength. You've already survived what most people couldn't even imagine, and that survival itself means you've got a fire in you they can't extinguish. Think about this. They wanted to own you. They wanted to control every breath, every thought, every choice. And yet here you are, searching for clarity, seeking strength, daring to ask the hard questions. That's resistance. That's rebellion. That's proof they didn't win, no matter how much damage they tried to inflict. You're still standing, and standing is victory when someone has spent all their energy trying to knock you to the ground. The path forward isn't about pretending you're unaffected. It's about using the pain as fuel. When you realize you've been in the orbit of someone who delights in your suffering, the instinct is often to shrink, to protect yourself by becoming smaller, quieter, invisible. But that's exactly what they want. They feed on your shrinking because it confirms their dominance. The most radical act you can take is to expand instead. Grow louder, bolder, stronger. Refuse to let their narrative define you. Refuse to let their voice become louder than your own. Yes, you'll doubt yourself. You'll wake up in the middle of the night and replay their words in your head. You'll feel the weight of their accusations, the sting of their insults, the echo of their gaslighting. But each time that happens, remind yourself, those words were weapons, not truths. If someone takes your deepest fears and hurls them at you in moments of conflict, that doesn't make the fear real. It makes the person cruel. And cruelty is not authority. Cruelty is not wisdom. Cruelty is weakness, wearing the mask of power. And here's the part that flips everything on its head. They were never as powerful as they made you believe. Their entire game, their entire illusion was about convincing you that you needed them more than they needed you. But strip away the manipulation, strip away the lies, and what you'll see is someone terrified of their own emptiness. Someone so hollow inside that the only way they can feel significant is by draining someone else's light. That's not strength. That's parasitism. And once you stop feeding them, once you cut off the supply, they crumble. That's why they fight so hard to keep you hooked. They can't survive without you, but you can survive without them. The most terrifying realization you'll have, and also the most liberating, is that the prison they built around you was never low. Don't underestimate what it means to reclaim your story. For so long, they told you who you were, what you thought, how you felt. They made you doubt the sound of your own truth. But the second you start saying, "This happened, it was real, and I survived it," you take back control. You take back your voice. And there is nothing more dangerous to someone who thrives on silence than a survivor who speaks. Every time you tell your story, even if it's only to yourself, you dismantle the lies they built around you. You chip away at the prison they tried to construct, and little by little you'll feel the strength returning. It won't come all at once, but it will come, and the day you wake up and realize that the fear is gone, that their shadow no longer follows you, that's the day you'll understand the full extent of your victory. Until then, you fight. You fight by choosing boundaries, even when it feels selfish. You fight by surrounding yourself with people who actually care, even if that circle is small. You fight by refusing to let their voice be the last word in your head when you fall asleep at night. And you fight by reminding yourself again and again that surviving evil is not just about walking away, it's about walking towards something greater. Because there's a life waiting for you on the other side of this. A life where your vulnerabilities are met with compassion, not exploitation. A life where your reality is honored, not denied. A life where your pain is not entertainment, but understood. And the only thing standing between you and that life is the courage to keep moving forward, one step at a time, no matter how heavy it feels. That's how you win. That's how you turn their darkness into your strength. That's how you make sure that no matter what they tried to do, they don't get the final say over your story. But here's the piece you need to carry with you. Survival isn't just about leaving someone behind, it's about reclaiming who you are in the aftermath. Because when you've lived under the shadow of someone who twisted your reality, who thrived on your pain, who stripped you down to nothing, the most radical act of defiance is to rebuild yourself. Not in their image, not under their rules, not within the limitations they set, but fully and unapologetically as you. That is the victory they can never take from you. You see, narcissists who descend into true darkness operate under one core assumption, that they can erase you. They believe that if they break you down enough, you'll forget your worth. If they distort your reality long enough, you'll forget your truth. If they drain you completely, you'll forget your fire. But that's where they're wrong, because no matter how much they tried to silence you, the fact that you are still searching, still reaching for clarity, still daring to hope, proves that they didn't succeed. They tried to bury you, but you were seed, and seed grows. The process of growth after destruction is not comfortable. It's not meant to be. Growth requires breaking, cracking open, pushing through darkness before you ever see the light. And you've already been through the breaking. You've already lived in the darkness. Now comes the part where you rise, even if it's inch by inch, even if it feels impossible some days. And the rise isn't just about healing the wounds they left. It's about forging something new out of them. Think of it this way. Scars are stronger than unbroken skin. Scar tissue doesn't form to look pretty. It forms to protect, to fortify, to ensure the same wound doesn't cut as deep again. That's you now, stronger at the broken places, wiser where you were once naive, sharper where you were once soft. And no one, no matter how manipulative, no matter how cruel, can take that hard-earned resilience away from you. But resilience doesn't come from pretending it didn't hurt. It comes from facing the hurt and refusing to let it define you. It comes from acknowledging, yes, you were wounded, yes, you were deceived, yes, you were broken down, but you are not staying there. That's the decision only you can make. And once you make it, there's no force dark enough to undo it. Here's what you have to remind yourself of. People who thrive on darkness hate nothing more than someone who chooses to live in light. Your healing will offend them. Your strength will infuriate them. Your refusal to remain broken will expose everything they're not. And that's why they fought so hard to keep you small, because your growth highlights their emptiness. So when you step into your power, don't be surprised if they come back, trying to pull you down again. That's not a sign that you're weak, it's a sign that you're winning. And when that happens, remember this, they don't get access to you anymore. Not your mind, not your emotions, not your heart. They forfeited that right the moment they chose cruelty over compassion, deception over honesty, control over love. You owe them nothing. Not your forgiveness, not your time, not your energy. Forgiveness, if you choose it, is for your freedom, not their redemption. And freedom is the goal. Because freedom is what they feared the most. Freedom is what they tried to crush. Freedom is the one thing they couldn't survive you having. And that's exactly why you have to claim it. Now let's talk about the rebuilding. Rebuilding yourself after evil isn't about rushing back into joy or pretending you're okay. It's about constructing a foundation that cannot be shaken again. That means setting boundaries so strong they feel unmovable. That means listening to your instincts when they whisper that something feels off and honoring that whisper as truth. That means cutting off toxic ties, even if it leaves you standing alone for a while. Because standing alone in peace is infinitely better than standing together in destruction. Rebuilding means redefining love, not as sacrifice, not as pain, not as conditional acceptance, but as mutual respect, safety, and trust. Love is not supposed to hurt. Love is not supposed to suffocate. Love is not supposed to leave you questioning your own worth. And once you truly believe that, you'll never again settle for less. But here's the challenge. You will be tempted. You'll be tempted to fall back into old patterns, to seek out familiar chaos, to confuse intensity with intimacy. That's the scar of surviving this kind of abuse. The nervous system learns to equate danger with connection. And it takes time to unlearn that. It takes patience. It takes vigilance. But it can be unlearned. You can retrain yourself to seek peace instead of drama, honesty instead of lies, kindness instead of cruelty. And every time you choose differently, you strengthen the new you. Every time you say no to manipulation, every time you cut off a toxic dynamic, every time you honor your boundaries, you're rewriting your story. You're proving to yourself that you are no longer available for destruction. And that proof compounds. One choice becomes two, two become 10, 10 become a lifetime of living free. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to keep choosing. Choosing yourself, choosing truth, choosing light. That's the work. That's the victory. And while you're rebuilding, don't forget to honor the parts of yourself that survived. The parts they tried to erase but couldn't. Maybe it's your compassion. Maybe it's your humor. Maybe it's your ability to dream even after all you've been through. Those are treasures. Those are your proof that you were never fully broken. And those are the very qualities that will carry you into a life beyond anything you thought possible. Understand this. Surviving someone who has become fully evil is not just about endurance. It's about transformation. You don't walk out the same person you were when you walked in. You walk out forged, tempered, unshakable. And that's not something to mourn. That's something to claim. Because the world needs people like you. People who have seen the darkest faces of humanity and refuse to let it destroy their own humanity. People who can look evil in the eye and still choose compassion, strength, and truth. That is rare. That is powerful. That is unstoppable. And the day will come when you look back and realize that the very thing that almost broke you became the foundation for everything you were meant to be. You'll see that you weren't destroyed. You were remade. And the life waiting on the other side of this pain will be richer, deeper, more authentic than anything you've known before. So keep going. Keep fighting. Keep choosing. Every step you take away from their darkness is a step toward your light. Every choice to stand tall, to set boundaries, to honor your truth, is a declaration. They didn't win. They never will. And that realization, that quiet certainty that they didn't win, is the seed of your power. Because when you've lived through someone's attempt to erase you, every breath you take afterward is defiance. Every choice you make for yourself, every moment you claim your own happiness, every boundary you enforce, it's all evidence that you are stronger than their darkness. You've already proven something most people never have to, that even when everything in you was being chipped away, you still refused to disappear. That refusal is everything. The mistake people often make when they walk out of a toxic, destructive dynamic is believing that the story is over. But it's not. Survival is only the first chapter. What comes after is where the true story begins, because now you're writing it without their pen, without their edits, without their manipulations. Now the words are yours. The pages are yours, and what you put down matters more than anything they ever tried to scribble over you. And yes, you'll hear their voice in your head for a while. You'll catch echoes of their criticism, their sneers, their accusations. They've trained you to anticipate their reactions, to question your own judgment, to rehearse your words before you speak. But here's the truth. That voice is not yours. That voice is theirs. And every time you catch it, you have an opportunity to reject it, to say, no, that's not me. That's not truth. That's programming. And with repetition, their voice grows weaker, while yours grows stronger. What makes this transformation terrifying to them and liberating for you is that once you reclaim your own voice, you become untouchable. They can no longer gaslight you because you trust your own reality. They can no longer weaponize your vulnerability because you've turned those wounds into wisdom. They can no longer feed off your pain because you've stopped giving them access to it. And that's when you realize the most important truth of all. They never had power. You gave it, and now you've taken it back. But with that power comes responsibility. Responsibility to yourself to keep choosing differently. Responsibility to guard your peace like it's the most valuable treasure you own, because it is. You cannot afford to go back. You cannot afford to let someone like that back into your life, no matter how convincing their apologies, no matter how persuasive their promises. Because the person who delights in your destruction doesn't suddenly wake up one morning and choose kindness. Change is possible for some, yes, but not when cruelty has become their comfort, not when evil has become their identity. And here's where many people get stuck, in the hope that maybe, just maybe, the person they loved is still in there. That if they're patient enough, forgiving enough, selfless enough, they'll finally see the version they first fell for again. But hope can be dangerous when it's misplaced. Hope, in the wrong hands, becomes a leash, and the longer you hold on to it, the more you chain yourself to someone who has no intention of ever changing. The hope you need to hold on to is not for them, it's for you. Hope in your ability to heal, to rebuild, to create a life beyond them. Hope in your own strength, your own resilience, your own future. That shift, when you move the hope from them to yourself, that's when everything changes. Because then your energy stops being wasted on saving someone who doesn't want saving and starts fueling the rebuilding of your own soul. That's when you take back not just your life, but your future. And let's talk about the future, because one of the cruelest things they tried to do was make you believe you didn't have one without them. They wanted you to see them as the beginning and end of your story, but they were never your story. They were a chapter. And now that chapter is closed. Ahead of you is blank space, and yes, it's terrifying to stare at a blank page. But it's also exhilarating, because now you get to decide what's written next. Not them, not their lies, not their manipulations. You. Maybe your future looks like peace for the first time in years. Quiet mornings without tension, nights where you sleep deeply without fear. Maybe it looks like connection with people who see you, hear you, honor you. Maybe it looks like pursuing dreams you buried because they mocked them, or rediscovering passions you abandoned because they told you they were pointless. Whatever it looks like, the point is this: it's yours. And once you taste the freedom of creating a life that is truly your own, you'll never want to hand that pen back to anyone else again. Of course, it won't always feel smooth. Healing isn't a straight road. It's a battlefield. Some days you'll feel invincible. Other days you'll feel like you're drowning in the weight of what you went through. But those days don't mean you're failing. They mean you're fighting, and fighting is how you win. Fighting to keep moving forward, fighting to silence the old lies, fighting to believe in yourself even when the echoes of their cruelty tell you not to. And on those days, remind yourself, you've survived worse. You've survived them. You've survived someone who tried to crush your spirit, distort your mind, dismantle your soul. So whatever comes next, you already know you can handle it, because you are battle-tested. You've been through the fire and come out stronger, sharper, wiser, and that kind of strength doesn't just disappear, it's yours forever. But don't just carry it silently. Use it. Use it to build. Use it to set an example. Use it to protect yourself and others. Because when you've seen the face of someone who's crossed into evil, you recognize the signs. You see the red flags others might miss. You hear the warning bells in places others stay silent. And that awareness isn't a burden, it's a gift. A gift you earned the hard way, yes, but one that can save you and maybe even someone else down the line. So when you hear someone doubting themselves because of how they've been treated, when you see someone questioning their reality because of manipulation, when you sense someone being drained by the same kind of darkness you've lived through, you can stand as proof. Proof that survival is possible. Proof that healing is possible. Proof that no matter how deep the scars, the story doesn't end there. That's how you turn pain into purpose. That's how you make meaning out of the suffering. Because you don't just survive for yourself, you survive so that your strength ripples out and helps others find their own. And there is nothing more powerful, nothing more unshakable than someone who's turned their wounds into wisdom and their scars into weapons of light. You may not feel like that person yet. You may still feel raw, broken, unsure, but that's okay. Because becoming that person isn't about being perfect. It's about choosing, every day, not to give in to the darkness. Choosing, every day, to step forward, even if it's 1 inch at a time. Choosing, every day, to believe in yourself a little more than you did yesterday. And as those choices stack up, you'll see it. You'll see who you've become. And you'll realize you are more powerful than the evil that tried to destroy you ever imagined.